Hello, folks. This is Greg. Just walking over this mock-up that we're sending to you. I'm going to be heading down there to Arizona this afternoon. Some things that I want to point out. It is a mock-up. It is for discussion purposes only, and it definitely has some cosmetic issues, and we'll address that in a minute. Want to walk through this right now. The supply chain that is out there is tight, and I can't guarantee what the thickness would be because of the supply chain. It could be an eighth, 3/16, which is what this is, or even a quarter inch. This is bent using a heat element. The particular unit that you see here, the Ben was playing around with running a router groove under there first and then bending it. We're not going to do that because it allows for stuff to get caught up in there and makes it harder to clean. So we will be bending this using our typical heating element. When you do bend acrylic, it distorts and puckers on the ends a little bit. So cosmetically, we're going to have to deal with a little disruption here. The thicker the material, the more obvious it will be. Ben chose to use a plate here, which I think is a good idea, that is bigger than that. He epoxied this using a product called Weld-On 242. It's a very strong epoxy, so it gives you a little area where you can have some filleted epoxy in here. It's not pretty, but it's much stronger than your typical acrylic solvent joint. So we could play around with some other solvent materials and potentially flush trim this and polish it with a flame polishing setup. But I'd rather not put a lot of effort into anything that isn't necessary when we get into production. So if this groove is something that you feel is cleanable and you can live with it, then probably I would suggest we leave that alone. And then we can use that epoxy, which gives us the durability. I will play with some other materials in the meantime to try to get some idea of alternate, cleaner ways to do this, because it's not like this is the museum work that we're used to doing. I'm just interested in speed and strength right now. Also, the opening here, definitely want your opinions to see whether this is sufficiently sized. You are familiar with the idea of shrink wrap going across here and then slicing that and getting your arms in, and when you're done, you can put another layer of shrink wrap over it. So if this is too big, let us know. I don't think it's too small. I think it's about the right size. So the other piece is that the edges here are not flame polished. We have the ability to hit this with a torch and create a glossy edge. But in this environment, if it's able to be just left the way it is, it's one step we can take out of the process. So we will continue as we go along with you guys to work on more mock-ups and more prototypes and get it better. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. Also, one other thing that was discussed by my friends and my friend's friend over in Ireland was having some holes perhaps up high here where you could have a vacuum hose put in with a filter, a biofilter in line to create negative pressure inside this space. So if you want to mark out or talk about where you might want some holes and what diameter you would want them drilled, then that would be a thing we would want to talk about. I decided to not drill anything for today, but just give you something that you could talk about. Again, this is just sloppy. It's quick and dirty. I came back and I realized he was just whipping this out, and when on further inspection, it's not something I would be proud of in any way in terms of workmanship. So it's really just to keep the conversation moving forward. So bear that in mind and make sure everyone's aware of that. Thank you.